Hi again then guys, and welcome to another tune setup for one of the 1.45 vehicles, this time of course the Dodge Coronet Super Bee. Now you could do a ton of different tuning styles on this one. Of course I like to use it with silly suspension. This one though is designed to make it a bit quicker through corners, of course, make it a bit more controllable, less wallowy, and to actually allow you to use it in some racing as well, maybe against some real people on certain circumstances. Now, as far as the tuning goes, I would recommend strongly dropping the weight, because it's a very light car compared to the way it looks. As far as the engine and the power, of course that's down to you. I've got it in N300 just to show what it can do, but more often than not, I tend to drive it anywhere between, say, N500 to N700, so it depends what you want, basically, and which category you find it to be best in terms of how competitive it is. Traction control, we have got turned off, that's down to you, of course. For the tyres, we've got sport softs. If you're wondering why I'm not using racing tyres, I've explained it a number of times, so I'm not going to go into that again. As far as the suspension goes, I've dropped the ride height as low as it can go, so of course drop that centre of gravity. As far as the spring frequency, we've got 2, so pretty high, almost as high as it can go. For the anti-roll, we've got 8 on the front and the rear. For the compression on the dampers, we've got 65, with 94 on the rebound, 2 degrees of camber on both the front and the back. You could definitely take it higher than that if you want it to be even stiffer and heavier through corners, but I don't find that it necessarily makes as much of a difference as you might think. I even tried it, for instance, with 2.5 degrees on the front and 4 degrees on the back. It wasn't necessarily that much better, if any, improvement over this. So I've gone for 2 degrees, as you can see. The toe angle is neutral, downforce is not adjustable anyway. As far as the diff, I've gone for the lowest initial torque and the highest acceleration and braking. As I always say, the diff is of course down to personal preference, so try that. If you don't like it, mess around, try something else. Or for instance, if you already know what diff settings you like, by all means combine it with some of the settings that I've done and make a Frankenstein creation. And finally, of course, for the transmission, this is the main part that you will need to change if you do give the car more power, of course, because otherwise you'll just redline too quickly. For N300, you want the fully customised transmission. I would recommend an auto setting of 162 miles an hour. Then for the individual gears, 1.9, 1.4, 1.1, 875 and 0.7 with a final drive of 3.3. That's more than good enough for N300 for both acceleration and top end speed, but as I said, if you do give it more power, you will definitely want to stretch those gears out a bit more to get more top end speed out of it. So that's it for the tune. As always, you could change the category completely all the way up to N700 if you choose to, but what you want to see, obviously, is how does something like a classic big muscle car like this compared to stuff like Porsches, Evos, and others? Well, as far as the tuning goes in GT Sport, there is a portion of reality which is held to in a better way than Gran Turismo 6 did. In other words, the car doesn't magically become this GTR level machine that does all the work for you. It's still a classic muscle car, it's still a big car, and even if it's light, it still covers a lot of ground area. So of course when you're piloting it through a corner, you should be able to feel that, and you definitely can. Once again, there are definitely things you can do to make it even quicker, the tyres for instance, but that's down to you. If you're able to use racing tyres, I would definitely recommend them, but the sports tyres of course show you what it can do in less than stellar circumstances. So if you do decide to use this tune, the kind of lap time that you're looking at least in my experience, is around a 158.5. So it's certainly not the quickest of N300 cars that I've done, nowhere near in fact. I think it's still like a 152 in the Porsche GT3, so it's nowhere near that. But that's only a second behind my Mitsubishi Evo 4, and interestingly, and more applicably, it's about 2 seconds quicker than my C2 Corvette. So that actually compares pretty well for a car that's as big and as old school as this is. So if you do decide to use the tune or respec it for a different category, I hope you have a ton of fun with it, and of course click the playlist on screen to see all of my other tunes as well. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.